She'd been sitting on that stone bench for over an hour. 8 months pregnant. In the rain, Cora Beth Hargrove Kang was a black woman, 31 years old, a former labor and delivery nurse who had spent 4 years helping other people's babies into the world. She had given up her apartment, her independence, a career she loved, to marry the man she chose. And the man she chose happened to be Kang Min Jun, 37 years old, chairman of a real estate empire that publicly looked like nothing interesting. In the underworld, they called him the architect, because he built structures around problems until there was no exit. A coiling black serpent tattooed on the left side of his neck, fine line ink, no color, precise. The way everything about him was precise. His parents never accepted Cora. Not because she was foreign, not simply because she was American, but because she was black, and because she was pregnant with the first Kang grandchild, and because she had married their son without asking their permission, which in Madame Kang's world was the same as arriving at a formal dinner in the wrong shoes. Unforgivable, permanently noted. Min Jun had to travel that night, a crisis in another city. He asked Cora to stay at the family mansion. The staff, the security, the proximity to a hospital. She didn't want to go. She went anyway, because she loved him, and because she was tired, and because she kept hoping that the warmth she offered might one day be returned. Madame Kang received her without looking at her belly, set her at the far end of the dinner table like decorative object placed at the wrong address, made her commentary about bloodlines and lineage, and belonging with the calm of a woman who has rehearsed cruelty until it sounds like tradition. Cora went to bed. She woke at 2 a.m. for water. She came back and found her suitcase outside the door. The door was locked. She walked downstairs. Madame Kang was waiting. They told her the guest cottage was unavailable. Min Jun's own security staff, following family orders, did not let her back inside, so she sat on a stone bench in the covered walkway in the rain, and she pressed her hands to her belly and she waited. She sent one message when the signal was strong enough. They locked me out. I'm in pain. I need you. And then she waited. 8 months pregnant, alone, in the dark. What Cora didn't know was what had already been done, what Kang Min Jun had built. Around her months before this night, in the silence she never asked him to fill. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click join to become a member and help our channel. The suitcase was already packed when Min Jun got the call. Cora heard it from the bedroom, his voice dropping to that particular register, the one that meant something had moved faster than expected, and the night was no longer theirs. She sat at the edge of the bed, one hand on her belly, listening to him speak in Korean through the door. She didn't need to understand every word. The tone said enough. He would have to go. He would ask her to stay here. She wasn't wrong. He came in still holding the phone, already calculating. His coat was on the chair. His other hand reached for it before he finished the sentence. There's a situation in Busan. I need to go tonight. He looked at her the way he always did when he was about to ask something he knew she wouldn't want to hear. Direct, prepared for resistance. I want you at my parents' house. No, Cora said. Not loudly, just clearly. The staff there, the space. If anything happens, I'll be fine at home. You're 8 months pregnant and alone. She looked at him. He looked back. They both knew she wasn't fragile. They both knew she wasn't afraid of being alone. What they both understood, without either of them saying it. He wasn't asking because of the baby. He was asking because of his parents and the particular kind of guilt that lives in a man who loves his wife and cannot make his family love her too. One night, he said. Cora pulled the suitcase from under the bed and started folding. She didn't speak during the drive. Minjun's hand rested near her knee on the center console, not touching. Just close. The way he had learned she preferred when she was managing something difficult. The city moved past the windows. She watched it. She touched the gold bangle at her wrist, the one her grandmother left her, and she thought about the way her grandmother used to say, "You carry yourself in, baby. Let nothing carry you out." The iron gate of the Kang compound opened without being asked. The sensors recognized the vehicle. The gravel drive curved through sculpted hedges and ended at the front steps where Madame Kang stood waiting. Under the portico light, she was dressed. It was 8 p.m. on a Wednesday, and Madame Kang was dressed as if receiving guests. The kind who required proof. A silk blouse, dark trousers, her jade pendant at her throat. Her silver hair was pinned. She watched the car come to a stop, and when Cora stepped out, carefully, one hand on the roof of the car, belly preceding her, Madame Kang's gaze moved past it, over it, to Minjun, who came around the other side and kissed his mother on both cheeks. "I'll be back tomorrow morning," he said. Madame Kang nodded. Her eyes finally found Cora's face. "You'll be comfortable here." It wasn't a question. It wasn't a welcome. It was a sentence with a period at the end, where a warmth should have been. Cora smiled and said, "Thank you," because she was not going to give them the satisfaction of watching her flinch at the door. Minjun held her face in both hands before he got back in the car. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I'll call when I land," he said quietly. "You tell me everything." She would not tell him everything. She never did. She was protecting him from the war he didn't know. He was already losing points in. Not by strategy, but by love. She didn't want their child born into a house where its father and grandfather didn't speak. She watched the car leave until the taillights disappeared past the gate. Then she turned around and walked inside. Dinner was set in the formal dining room. Long table, deep walnut, too many candles. Senior Kang sat at one end, in near silence, cutting his food with the patience of a man who has decided the evening is already finished. Madame Kang sat to his left. A chair had been set for Cora at the far end, separated from them by 4 empty seats and the full length of the table. She sat in it. The housekeeper brought soup. Madame Kang waited until Cora had lifted her spoon before she began. It started with lineage, how the Kang name had survived 3 generations of difficulty in Korea, how it had been carried by men who understood what was required of them. Then bloodlines, not said directly, never directly, said through questions about what traditions Cora had grown up with, what her family's origins were, whether Cora had thought about how the child would identify. The word identity in Madame Kang's mouth was a blade in a velvet case. Cora set her spoon down. She breathed in, breathed out. "My son," she said, "is also your grandson." The table went quiet. Even the candles seemed to reduce. Madame Kang turned to look at her. The full look, the first one of the evening. And her gaze moved to Cora's belly with something that was not tenderness, something more clinical, assessing. Then she said with perfect calm, "That does not yet make him heir." Senior Kang did not move. He did not intervene. He set his fork down on the plate with a quiet click and resumed looking at the middle distance, which was his way of agreeing without speaking. Cora folded her napkin. She placed it beside her bowl. She stood, slowly, the way she did everything, now, one hand going to the small of her back as a reflex. "I think I need to rest," she said. Her voice was level. It cost her nothing to make it level. She had been practicing for 8 months. She walked upstairs. She changed into the white maternity dress and the cardigan. She lay down in the guest suite. She did not cry because she had decided some ago that this house would not have her tears in it. She closed her eyes. She listened to the rain begin against the windows. She breathed until the baby settled, and eventually she slept. She woke at 2 a.m, dry-mouthed and needing water. She rose carefully, opened the bedroom door, walked down the hall to the small service kitchen, filled a glass, drank it slowly, standing at the counter in the dark. She thought about Min June landing in Busan. She thought about the way her grandmother smelled, like cedar and lavender. She went back down the hallway. Her suitcase was outside the door. She looked at it for a moment. Cognac leather handle, the wheel that always pulled slightly left. Then she tried the door. The handle moved without resistance, and then stopped. Locked from the inside. She knocked twice. Nothing. She went downstairs. Madame Kang was waiting in the entrance hall, under the chandelier, still dressed, the jade pendant catching the light. She had not gone to sleep. She had been waiting. "You won't be sleeping in the family suite," she said. Cora stood at the base of the stairs and felt the cold of the marble through the soles of her slides. "I am your son's wife." "You are a choice he makes," Madame Kangson said. "That is not the same as belonging here." Senior Kang appeared in the doorway behind her. He looked at Cora once, then looked away. The housekeeper was instructed to bring Cora's suitcase to the guest cottage. At the rear of the property, Madame Kang turned and walked back toward the interior of the house. The front door opened, a staff member, eyes down, holding it. Cora picked up her own suitcase. She walked through it. The guest cottage path was wet. There were stones laid in the ground every 18 inches, decorative, uneven. And Cora moved between them with her suitcase in one hand, and the other pressed to her belly as a reflex. The walkway had a roof, just barely. Enough to keep the worst of the rain off. The cottage door was at the end of it, and there was a keypad beside the handle. The security guard who had been sent to escort her stopped a few steps back. "The code," Cora said. He didn't answer right away. She turned. He was looking past her at the cottage door with the expression of a man being asked to do something he has already been instructed not to do. "I was told," he said, "to inform you that access to the cottage is not available tonight." Cora looked at him. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it. She could see it in the way. He held the umbrella, angled toward her, not himself. "Where am I supposed to go?" He said nothing. Because there was nothing to say. He had his orders, and his orders had been given by the woman who signed his paycheck. Cora understood this. She had grown up understanding the difference between cruelty and the people who carry it out. Because they have to eat. She turned back to the cottage door. She sat down on the stone bench beside the walkway overhang. A garden bench, decorative, not made for sitting in the cold. And she set her suitcase beside her feet, and she thought, "Do not panic. Panicking is the only thing that makes this worse." She pulled out her phone. No full signal, but enough for text. She typed slowly. "They locked me out. I'm in pain. I need you." She didn't say it was the cold. She didn't say it was the bench. She didn't say anything else because 8 words was all she needed. And more than 8 might break the careful glass she was keeping herself behind. She sent it. The little check mark appeared. Delivered. She stared at it. Nothing came back. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was what had already been done. 3 months before this night, Min June had sat across from Seo Jae-yoon at the office in Central Seoul and said 2 sentences. "I want her protected if something happens to me, and I want her protected if something happens from within." He didn't name his parents. He didn't have to. Seo had been watching the Kang family dynamic for 15 years, long enough to understand what from within meant. The restructure took 11 weeks. The mansion, held in Minjun's name since his father ceded control 6 years earlier, was moved into a protected family trust. The primary beneficiary was Cora Beth Hargrove Kang. The secondary beneficiary was the unborn child, named provisionally in the documents as male heir, Kang lineage, expected late summer. The companies that funded his parents' lifestyle, the driver's salary, the security staff contracts, the maintenance fees for 2 holiday properties in Jeju, and the caretakers of a countryside house in Gyeonggi, all administered through the same trust, all conditional on Cora's continued status as Min Jun's legal spouse and recognized member of the household. A clause, 1 paragraph, clear language. If Cora was expelled from family property, denied access, threatened, or treated as a liability within any residence under the trust's control, the parents' access to all administered resources would be revoked, effective immediately upon notification from Minjun or his legal representative. Seo had read it back to Minjun after typing it. "She'll know?" Seo asked. "No," Minjun said. "She won't need to." He was trying to protect her from having to know she needed protection. This was his one mistake. Not the legal structure, which was airtight. The mistake was believing the night wouldn't come before the morning he planned to tell her. He had been moving carefully, the way he moved everything. With architecture, not impulse. He would tell her after the baby came. He would frame it not as precaution but as gift. "This is yours." It always was. But it was 3:10 a.m., and Cora was on a stone bench in the cold. He read the message at 3:28 in the back of a car, 20 minutes from the Busan pier. He read it once. Then he dialed the helicopter service, and while it rang, he dialed Seo on his other phone. And while Seo answered, he was already telling the driver to turn around. He did not call his mother. He did not text his father. The decision to say nothing to them was not an accident. It was the first move. The silence on his end was not confusion, or grief, or the shock of a son betrayed by his parents. It was an architect looking at a problem and seeing finally the correct place to put the load. 43 minutes. That was how long it would take him to get back. 43 minutes for Cora on the stone bench. He could not shorten the distance. But he could make sure that when he arrived, every piece was already in place. Seo was already pulling the documents. Dr. Park was already dressed. His own security team was already mapping the route to the compound. The helicopter lifted off the Busan landing pad into the dark. Below, the city lit up and then fell away, and Minjun sat in the single seat behind the pilot and looked at the 8 words on his phone screen and held very, very still, because the alternative, the actual full weight of what his parents had done to the woman carrying his son, was something he was not going to feel until she was inside and safe. And he could afford to feel it. Not yet. First he had to get there. The rain came harder after midnight. Not dramatic, no thunder, no wind, just the steady kind that doesn't apologize. The kind that gets into everything. The hem of a cardigan. The gap between a collar and a neck. The fingers of a woman sitting on a stone bench because she has nowhere else to be. Cora had her back against the wall of the covered walkway. The overhang was narrow. The bench was at the edge of it. Her left shoulder was dry. Her right shoulder wasn't. She tried not to think about the floor inside, the marble floor, which was heated. She tried not to think about the bed in the east wing where Minjun's grandmother had once slept, where the blankets were the heavy kind that settled over you like a decision. She had noticed the room when they'd visited 3 months ago. She had not been invited into it then either. She thought about her apartment instead. The one she'd given up when she married him. 3rd floor, view of a parking structure, a kitchen that was technically too small, a radiator that clicked like a metronome all winter. She had loved that apartment with something close to embarrassment. The way you love something ordinary, because it is entirely yours. Her phone had 2 bars. She called Min-June. It rang 4 times and dropped. She tried again, straight to voicemail. She lowered the phone to her lap. The baby moved, not strongly. A rolling shift, an elbow crossing from one side to the other. The particular kind of motion that Cora had learned meant the baby was adjusting to position her discomfort, as if trying to help. She pressed her palm to the side of her belly. "I know," she said quiet. "I know. We're okay." She was not sure they were okay, not because of anything medical. Her body was doing what it was supposed to do. The pregnancy was progressing correctly. Dr. Park had cleared her for exactly this kind of minimal physical stress. She was not in danger, but danger isn't only medical. There was another kind. The kind that settles in children before they have language for it. The way a body learns what it's worth, from the first rooms it's allowed into. She thought about her son, his small hands that she had not yet held, his face she did not yet know. And she thought about what it might mean to him one day, that the first place his mother was ever turned away from was the house of his father's family. That was the thing she couldn't breathe through. Not the cold, not the damp, not the bench, not even the contraction when it came. A low, persistent tightening that moved through her lower back and released after 40 silent times, like a door that had been pushed and decided not to open. She breathed through it the way Dr. Park had shown her. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. She did it twice. It passed. But the other thing, that didn't pass. She was 31 years old. She had worked a labor and delivery ward for 4 years before she married him. She had held other people's babies in the first minute of their lives. She had watched mothers look at their children with the specific expression that she now understood. Not joy exactly, but recognition. There you are. I have been waiting for you. She had spent years helping other women into that moment, and now she was sitting outside in the rain, and the man she loved was in a helicopter she couldn't reach, and the people she was supposed to call family had taken the keys and gone back to bed. She tried the phone one more time. Nothing. She set it face down on the bench beside her. The security guard had gone, not out of cruelty. His shift rotation had ended, and whoever sent the next man would not have known to come to the cottage path. She was alone. The compound was quiet. The lights in the main house were off on every floor she could see, except the one narrow window on the 2nd story. Madame Kang's study. A lamp was on behind the curtain. She was awake. She was watching. Cora didn't look at the window for long. She pulled her cardigan tighter. The oatmeal wool, soft but not enough. And she pressed both hands flat against her belly. And she did the thing she had been doing since the 3rd month. When the anxiety first started arriving in the middle of the night, like an uninvited guest that knew her address, she spoke low and specific, the way her grandmother had taught her to pray. Not upward, but inward. You are going to come into a world that already loves you, she said. Your father loves you. I love you. That's 2. That's more than enough. She stopped, breathed. I'm sorry about tonight. You didn't choose this house. Neither did I. We're going to find a better one. The lamp in Madame Kang's study window stayed on. Cora leaned her head back against the stone wall and closed her eyes. She could feel the cold of it through her hair, through the back of her skull, all the way down. She sat there in the dark, and the wet and the quiet, 8 months full of a child who was counting on her to stay calm. and she did the only thing left that she could do. She waited. She did not know that 600 meters away, on the front approach road to the compound, a black SUV had just turned through the outer gate. She did not hear it yet. The engine was too far. The rain was too steady. But it was coming. 3 vehicles came through the gate at 4:09 a.m. Cora heard them before she saw them. The gravel and the headlights, and then the doors, 4 of them, in rapid sequence. She didn't move from the bench. She sat up straighter, pressed her palms flat on her knees, watched the corridor of light sweep across the walkway roof. As the cars positioned themselves in the forecourt, Min-jun came through the front door still in his coat. He spoke 2 words to the staff member who opened it, and the man stepped aside. Doctor. Park came in behind him, canvas tote over one shoulder, already moving. Seo Jae-hyun was last. A dark folder under one arm, glasses on, face arranged in the expression of a man about to do something he has prepared for. Min-jun found her in 4 minutes. She heard him before she saw him. The pace of those footsteps on the stone path, the specific cadence, she knew the way she knew her own pulse. He came around the corner of the walkway and stopped. He looked at the bench. He looked at the suitcase. He looked at her, damp cardigan, damp hair, both hands on her belly, the gold bangle catching the walkway light. She tried to smile. He crossed the distance in 3 steps and knelt in front of her. Both hands came up to her face. He held it carefully, the way you hold something you are afraid of finding broken. "Are you hurt?" he said. Not a question. "No, the baby's fine. I had 1 contraction, mild at past. Dr. Park is here. I know. I can hear her." He didn't move. His hands stayed at her face, thumbs at her cheekbones. And he looked at her with the particular expression she had seen exactly twice before in 4 years. Once when she told him about her grandmother, and once when he watched her name go onto the ultrasound report as the mother of his child. He was feeling everything he hadn't let himself feel in the helicopter. He was doing it in 11 seconds, looking at her on a stone bench in the rain. "They did this to you," he said. "Min-jun. Say yes or no." She looked at him. "Yes." He stood. He went inside. Dr. Park examined Cora, there in the walkway first, then helped her into the East Wing Master's suite. The one that was never assigned to anyone. She sat in the chair by the window, with a blanket from Dr. Park's bag while the doctor confirmed what Cora had already known. The baby was fine. The contraction was Braxton Hicks. Her blood pressure was elevated, but not dangerously so. "You need warmth and rest," Dr. Park said, "both of which you are going to get." She said this with the particular authority of a woman who did not care about the social architecture of the house she was currently standing in. In the formal dining room, Min-jun placed the matte black folder on the center of the table. The same table, the same chandelier, the same 2 chairs at the head end, where his parents now sat in their robes at 4:30 in the morning, looking at their son standing at the other end, with his coat still on. Seo Jae-hyun opened the folder. He read in full, not summary. He read the name of every property, every company, every account, every contract held under the trust. He read the beneficiary designations: Cora Beth Hargrove Kang, primary; male heir, Kang lineage, secondary. He read the clause. He read it slowly once, and then he read it again. The silence, after it was different from the other silences in that house. Madame Kang's hand came to the jade pendant at her throat. "Everything you called yours," Min-jun said, "was already hers." Senior Kang took his glasses off, set them on the table. It was the first thing he'd moved voluntarily all night. The driver's salary, the Jeju property maintenance, the countryside house, your security detail, the staff in this building. Min-jun gestured toward the ceiling, the walls, the table beneath their hands. All of it administered through a trust she controls 3 months ago, before tonight. Madame Kang looked up. You did this before. I did it before because I knew. His voice didn't rise. It never rose. I knew you were waiting for a moment. I didn't know it would be tonight. But I knew it was coming, and when it came, I wanted there to be no confusion about who this family actually belongs to. The dining room held the 4 of them. Min Jun in his coat, Siu with his folder, and 2 people who had spent a decade believing that loyalty to lineage was its own protection, discovering at 4:30 in the morning that it wasn't. Madame Kang's voice, when it came, had lost its architecture. You would take your own parents. You locked my wife out of this house in the cold, he said. She is carrying my son. You had made your choice before I landed. He left them there. He went upstairs. Dawn came at 5:47. Madame Kang knocked on the door of the East Wing suite at 5:50. She was alone. No jade pendant, no updo. Her silver hair was loose and fell to her shoulders in a way that made her look older and, somehow, more human. She stood in the hall and waited. Cora opened the door. She looked at the woman in the hallway. This small, silver-haired woman who had directed her to a stone bench in the rain. And she stepped back. She let her in. Min Jun was in the chair across the room. He didn't stand. Madame Kang sat on the edge of the settee. She looked at her hands for a moment. Then she looked at Cora. I came to apologize, she said. Cora waited. I was cruel to you. Her voice was careful. The way it is when a person is disassembling themselves word by word in real time. I was cruel to my grandson before he was born. Before I knew him. She stopped. Her jaw moved slightly. I believed. I was protecting something. I understand now that what I was protecting was my own pride. The room was quiet. I accept, Cora said, that you understand the consequence. But I won't pretend this didn't happen. I won't ask my son to pretend either. Madame Kang nodded. She did not argue. She stood and she left. Min Jun crossed the room and stood in front of Cora. He took her hand in both of his. Outside, the sky was turning from gray to pale gold. We're leaving, he said, not today, but soon. I bought a house last month. Different city. I was going to tell you after he was born. He looked at her. I'm telling you now. Cora looked at him for a long moment. Then she leaned her forehead against his shoulder. You already knew, she said. I always know. She laughed, small, quiet, tired. That's very annoying. I know that too. They left the Kang compound as the sun cleared the tree line. Min Jun's hand at the small of her back, her suitcase in his other hand. The same one Madame Kang had set outside the suite door 8 hours ago. The same gold bangle on Cora's wrist, catching the morning light. She paused at the top of the front steps and looked back at the house. At the iron gate, at the stone bench, visible at the far edge of the walkway, still wet. She touched her belly. She said nothing to the house. The house had said enough. She walked down the steps and got in the car. And when the door closed behind her and the compound fell away through the rear window, she understood what her grandmother had meant all along. You carry yourself in, baby. Let nothing carry you out. She had carried herself in. And she was walking herself out, on her own feet, her own terms, her son already knowing the difference. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been in a room, or a family, or a marriage where someone decided you didn't belong before you ever had the chance to prove them wrong? And if so, did the person who loved you see it happening before you did? Did they do something about it? In silence. While you were still trying to make peace, tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all, and if you believe in stories about dignity, protection, and belonging, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel